You're listening to Paris: A State of Mind on Paris Underground Radio. For more great content, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Paris Underground Radio.
Welcome to Paris: A State of Mind. Join us as we talk about the good, the bad, the ins, the outs of property rentals and purchases in and around Paris. We'll have topics for renters, owners, and visitors, share questions we are regularly asked, and more. My name is Gail Boisclair of Perfectly Paris, and my co-host is Marie Pistinier of Lokim Paris. Be a part of it. Both of us are proud members of the SPLM, the first representative body of furnished rental professionals. Hello, listeners of Paris: A State of Mind. We are back in the studio recording another episode, talking to people about living in different areas of Paris because we're having so much fun doing it. And today we're going to go to an arrondissement that we have not yet gone to. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Roopa Chauhan, and she is a writer and translator based in Paris and Detroit. Welcome, Roopa.
It's such a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's really fun to have you on, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the very end. But can you tell our listeners right now what arrondissement you currently live in?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I live in the 20th arrondissement near métro Gambetta on the Line 3.
And how long have you lived there?
I've lived here since December 2006, so close to 17 years.
Oh my gosh. Does time fly when you're having fun?
It certainly does.
Have you always lived actually in that same area?
No, I've lived kind of all over Paris. I started off in the 11th, then I moved to the 18th, and then to the 16th, then to the 7th, and then to the 20th. So I kind of went in a circle.
That's interesting. That's actually good, considering our topic of conversation. And so why did you choose to live in the 20th by Gambetta? Was it just the luck of the draw of what you found in terms of an apartment? Or was it a place that you felt that you wanted to be?
Well, when I was looking for an apartment, when I was ready in a position to buy, my criteria were location, price, size, and safety. So I knew for sure that I wanted to live on the east side. I would have preferred to go back to the 11th because that's where I lived when I first came to Paris and I loved it. But the prices had gone up quite a bit in the 11th. And in the 20th, I had more options in my price range. So I picked this studio apartment because it is very close to the metro, a 5-minute walk from the metro. The neighborhood is filled with great bakeries, cheese shops, butchers, supermarkets, bars, restaurants, and all are within a 2 to 5 minute walk from my place. The studio is also a decent size for a one-room apartment. It's 30 meters squared. It has direct sunlight, and it's on the last floor. There's also an elevator, and there are 3 buildings in this complex, and they're all well-maintained. I remember that was something that I noticed when I came to visit. Everything was clean, and it wasn't in a state of disrepair. Everything just seemed really well-maintained. In my building, there's also a concierge, a gardien, as we say in French. And I thought that was nice, something that's nice to have too, in case like you're waiting for a package and it needs to be picked up, or it's just always nice to have somebody on site almost all the time. So that was another selling point for me. My building is also at the far end of this gorgeous courtyard that has a garden and trees. And so I look out onto this courtyard. And since I live alone, it was really important that I not be on the ground floor close to the street. So where I am right now, I feel very safe because you have to enter 3 security codes before you reach my building. Yeah, so I mean, the location, the price, it was in my price range. The size, it's not huge, but it's what I could afford. And it definitely is enough for one person and being safe.
Well, I do think the size for a studio apartment, that's a very big studio apartment. That's the size of a lot of one-bedroom apartments.
Yeah.
And even bigger than some tiny one-bedroom apartments. So I think you lucked out by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I did. And I don't know if I should mention I would have loved to have another, like a bedroom. And I think if you're looking for something I'm just saying this because I know that you know that I had my place renovated recently. And I was looking to maybe put in a bedroom, but because I only have one window, it wasn't possible. I don't know if this makes sense, but it's kind of vertical in the way that it's laid out and not horizontal. And then it just would have been easier to divide up if it had been more horizontal with a couple of windows. Then I could have had a bedroom, but it really just, it wasn't possible. It would have just been, it would have literally been a box. The space wouldn't have been broken up properly. And it's just better to have the extra space and have the bedroom, like have my sleep in the living area.
Definitely. And so how long ago did you move to your studio apartment then?
I signed the promesse de vente in September 2006. And then I think there's a 3-month waiting period. And then it was like the day after, it's when I went to the notaire and I gave them my check and signed the contrat de vente. And then I think I moved in the next day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So December 2006.
A long time.
Yeah.
And so you sound very excited about your area. And I guess, do you still feel as excited about it? Or do you part of you wish that maybe you lived in another area?
No. I really, and I have thought about leaving, and I've never managed to convince myself that I'd be happier elsewhere in Paris. So yeah, I pretty much feel the same way now. And if anything, because my heart was set on the 11th and I couldn't get the 11th, but I've really come to love the 20th and I can't imagine living anywhere else. I guess, I still love the neighborhood and the people now. Since I've lived here for 17 years, I know my neighbors. I know the commerçants, the bakers, the cashiers of the supermarket, the people who work in the cafes, so like if I had the budget, I would love an apartment with a bedroom, but honestly, this is the next best thing.
And what is it that you like most about the area?
I love that it's a very relaxed neighborhood, real mix of people. It's lively. There's always something going on. There are always people around on weeknights, weekdays, weekends. And because I have lived in the western part of Paris and in the 16th and in the 7th, there is a difference because when I lived there, I found that there wasn't much going on the weekends. It was very quiet. And I was told it is because a lot of people leave for the weekend. They leave for their country homes or they go away for the weekend. And here people stay. And often people come here to go out. Young people, there are a lot of I guess, really hip bars and clubs in the neighborhood. So it's a real mix. It can be quiet when you want it to be and really lively when you want it to be too. The other reasons are the food. There are a lot of great places to get good quality organic food. There are markets that are on Wednesday mornings and on Saturday mornings that are not far away. And those are always fun. There are so many options in terms of restaurants and takeouts, Indian, Greek, Lebanese, Italian. There's some really great pizzerias, really, really good pizzerias. Not far, unfortunately, because I love pizza and am often tempted and give in to my temptation. And the other thing that I love are the parks and the squares, that are really close by. And one of my favorite parks in Paris, the Bout de Chaumont, which is in the 19th, but it's a 20-minute walk from here. So when I'm motivated, that's where I go running. And it's so close by. It's a really nice walk. Oh yeah, and there's the Parc de Belleville that's not far. And as you know, the Parc de Belleville has a wonderful panoramic view of Paris where you can see the Eiffel Tower, you can see Sacré-Cœur. It's just, I think you can see Sacré-Cœur from there. But anyway, that's also a nice place to go for a walk.
And do you think that the neighborhood is primarily a certain type of people, like families, singles, couples, senior citizens?
I think that's one of the things that I really love about this neighborhood is that it's not homogenous. It's very diverse. If I had to describe the vibe, I would describe it as diverse bobo chic. So I think it's great for single people. It's great for senior citizens. It's great for couples. It's great for young people. It's great for families. I think there's a bit of something for everyone in this neighborhood, to be honest.
And is there something that you wish you knew about this area before you moved here that you think our listeners should know?
I did do my research before moving here, and I can't think of anything that I would wish that I'd known, because you can't know everything before you move into a place or a neighborhood. And one of the nice things about moving to a new place is discovering everything that the place has to offer. I guess maybe I can't think of anything because it's always nice the element of surprise is always nice. I also can't think of anything that I was unpleasantly surprised by.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? One thing I would say, one thing that I wish that I'd known is that I wish that I'd taken, I know that in Paris, they often say that you don't really know your neighbors. In a big city, you don't know your neighbors. And it's nice that I do know my neighbors, but I wish with certain, like, I think you have to be careful as well to like set boundaries. So I wish I'd been a little bit better with that, with certain neighbors, like setting boundaries and not being too friendly, which I guess coming from North America, you tend to be like smiley and friendly and people can get the wrong idea. And I think if you're buying an apartment, you're obviously investing in the long term. I wish that I'd kept my guard up a little bit and been more reserved, like the French are, you know, and I wish I'd been a little bit more like that in the beginning. And does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think it's something to be said by and large for most big cities that you kind of have to find an even ground between being cordial and friendly with your neighbors, but not actually being their friend.
Yes.
Pleasant with your neighbors and have nice neighborly relations. But I do feel that I don't want to be best friends with my neighbors either. I'm completely happy to speak to them all, but I really don't want to be their best friend. And I don't want them to be my best friend either.
Yes. And I think this is because when I moved here I was living in a chambre de bonne in the 7th. And there I had an amazing view of all of Paris from the chambre de bonne. And we were all like, there were a bunch of us living in the maids' quarters in this wonderful Haussmann building. And we were all kind of friends. We would invite each other over for a dinner. We would have brunch together. We would like kind of hang out. It was like we were, I guess, kind of roommates, you know? And when you move into an apartment and you're the owner, you can't have the same relationship with your neighbors. And I think that adjustment was a little bit hard for me to make because I guess like you're grown up now, you own your apartment and everybody kind of lives in their own, you know, they have their own lives. Obviously you're very close together, but yeah, you have your own lives and they have to respect your privacy. So yeah, I just wish that I'd not been as friendly. And I think there are not very many, like also like when I was in the chambre de bonne, there were people from Argentina. There were French people too, but I think there was a mix of nationalities. So it was kind of like auberge espagnole a little bit, that kind of feeling, if people remember the movie. And here it's very French. I think I might be the only person who, even though I am French, I have French nationality now, but the only...
not native French.
Yeah, not native French person. Yeah. It takes a while also to get to know your neighbors. You know, that's something else that I've, now I know them, but it took me a long time, you know.
Yeah. You'd like to add though about living in your area?
The only thing I'd like to say is that moving here was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
And you have a guard dog now too.
I do. I have my little Una that's just joined me 2 days ago. And it's nice to have her with me. And my place is big enough to have a small pet.
Yes. She looks very cute.
If you're enjoying this episode of Paris, A State of Mind, you may also be interested in our sister podcast, Storytime in Paris. Join Jennifer as she asks 5 questions to authors who've been inspired by Paris. Paris, A State of Mind will be right back after a word from our sponsors. And now back to Paris, A State of Mind.
Imagine now the big apartment fairy comes down. I know you really love your area, but the apartment fairy says that you can live anywhere in Paris that you want. Money is no object. There's no limit. The sky's the limit. You can live wherever you want and have whatever type of an apartment that you want. 20 bedrooms if you want. What would be your ideal, perfect apartment and where?
Okay. So if money wasn't an object, I would pick L'Île Saint-Louis in the center of Paris. I think it's where Paris was founded, actually, L'Île Saint-Louis. And on L'Île Saint-Louis, I would love an apartment or a loft on the last floor with a rooftop terrace overlooking the Seine. That would be the dream. Also, Bertillon ice cream is not far. I think that's where the headquarters are. So that would be the dream.
That's a good dream.
What about you? Out of curiosity, where would you love to live?
I do love living in the 18th. I don't know if I'd ever want to leave the 18th. I think that if I could secretly have a maison particulier in Parc So, that would be quite nice.
I would also like to say that you probably know this. In the 20th, there's so L'Île Saint-Louis, but my second choice, or I don't know, it's a tie between L'Île Saint-Louis and La Campagne à Paris. It's right by the Porte de Bagnolet, and it's Paris, but it's a residential neighborhood with these amazing houses. And I think that's where Monica Bellucci lives.
Oh, maybe.
What I've heard. They have like houses they're semi-detached and they have gardens, and you wouldn't think that you're in Paris when you walk around this neighborhood, but it is Paris. And obviously there are millions of euros. So, but yeah, that's another place that would be, if money were no object, that's where I would love to live too.
Thank you very much for all of that. That was all. It was great. And I hope that people who've not been to the 20th or don't know the 20th around Metro Gambetta have learned a little bit through your enthusiasm about the area, and maybe we'll give it a try. But before we sign off, I would like you to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, apart from what I did in the introduction.
So I've lived in Paris for 23 years, but I grew up in Michigan, around Detroit, in Metro Detroit. And I'll be hosting an upcoming podcast with Paris Underground Radio called Ready for My Close-Up. And the podcast is about France and the movies. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can find me on the Paris Underground Radio website.
I can't wait. I look forward to your podcast. Thank you so much. This was great, Roopa.
The pleasure is all mine. It was great to talk to you about my neighborhood, Gail. And I love your podcast.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Paris, A State of Mind, featuring Gail of Perfectly Paris and Marie of Loquim, both who are founding members of the SPLM. Paris, A State of Mind is produced by Paris Underground Radio. The music, Jazz in Paris, is by Media Right Productions. For more information on this show and others, go to parisundergroundradio.com.
This episode of Paris, A State of Mind was produced by Jennifer Garrity for Paris Underground Radio. For more great content, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Paris Underground Radio.